I can discuss it very quickly. I don't want to give spoilers away. I'm very careful about that. But let's just say, there's been a lot of talk about it being, not quite as bad as Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, a little bit better. I think it's probably maybe a little lesser, in my opinion. Crystal Skull is not a great film. I mean, let's be honest, it is not. But it has some well-orchestrated action sequences via Mr. Spielberg. It's hard for him to completely screw up an action film, and so there are some impressive sequences. I mean, it does fail in certain areas, as we know. In the new one, I think James Mangold does a pretty good job orchestrating action sequences as well. But the first two acts of the film are pretty good stuff. It opens in 1942 with this de-aged Harrison Ford, which that's pretty convincing. I thought they did a really good job with the de-aging stuff, although they still haven't worked out the logistics of an 80-year-old actor being de-aged. The movements don't match the face. Just same thing as The Irishman, but we've talked about that ad nauseum, I guess. But and the voice, that's interesting too, because it's the 80-something-year-old Harrison Ford, his voice with this very much younger man. But again, you can kind of suspend your disbelief and go along with that, and it's pretty good. And then there's it immediately goes to 1969, and he's on a mission, which kind of ties into the 1942 prologue that's set up at the beginning of the film. So those first two acts are pretty. You can kind of go along. You can feel the seams a little bit here and there, but it's cobbled together enough to where you kind of go along with it. And then when it gets to the third act, it just gets really overly complicated. The plot does. There's a lot of, we got to go here to get this, and we got to go there to get that, so we can find this. And you're instantly reminded that the beauty and the joy of the original Raiders of the Lost Ark is that the premise is set up in about 10 minutes, and we're off to the races. And for the rest of the film, we're just trying to get the Ark of the Covenant. There's none of this, all this other stuff that hurdles we have to jump through to get the Ark of the Covenant. And so that's the beauty and the simplicity of...
Well, in Temple of Doom, once it settles into its main location, that's it.
Yes, exactly, yeah. And you have that incredible opening set piece in Temple of Doom. There are some naysayers on Temple of Doom. In fact, one of my fellow critics came out of the theater and he said, "Well, I thought it was, it's Temple of Doom's probably my least favorite or something like that, or this would rate higher than that." I said, "No, I disagree." I said, because that opening 25-minute set piece is some of the best filmmaking in Steven Spielberg's career. It's just jaw-droppingly good. I still, every time I see it, it raises goosebumps. And so this latest one, just the last act, really, you're really feeling that 2 hour and 25-minute runtime. I mean, you're rolling your eyes at this point, thinking, okay, it's just there's, and they throw in the ethnic kid who doesn't know how to fly a plane, and then he does, and then they've got the evil Nazi who has to survive until he is finally destroyed in the third act, and there's, of course, that's not really a spoiler. I think everybody knows that. There's a lot of just callbacks to the earlier series, just repeating things that we've seen before. Just a real air of familiarity, but it does have a good conclusion, I guess you would say. Like the concluding 5 minutes, it feels really good. There's a good sense of closure there, and it puts a smile on your face, and so you leave in a pretty good mood after that very difficult third act. But it definitely has its challenges there. Several of my fellow critics said, well, I just really liked it. And I think they're of a younger generation, not having seen the original Indiana Jones films in the theaters. I've seen them all in the theater, because I'm old enough to have done that. And when you experience them as they were first released each time, you can definitely feel the law of diminishing returns with this one, I think. I guess it's your point of reference that will allow you to enjoy it, or maybe more or less. But it's definitely, in my opinion, the least of the series. I just feel like it has a feel of filmmaking by committee, I guess you would say. Like I said, it's shot by Feed and Papa Michael, who did Sideways, among many other things. I think he's worked with James Mangold quite a bit. I believe he might have shot Ford v Ferrari. I think.
Yeah.
I think they've worked together.
Yeah. We can call him right now. I have him on my Skype.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to share your criticisms?
I thought it was fine. The lensing was fine. I had a problem with the editing, to tell you the truth, because Mike Kahn, who's Spielberg's, a longtime editor who's worked with him on everything, I believe, since Close Encounters. He might have missed one or two titles there, but there aren't many that he's not worked with Spielberg on. I think maybe all of them. He worked certainly on all the other Indiana Jones films, and I think his touch is missed because he knew how to assemble these action sequences and put them together in a very cohesive way. You've got a team of editors here. There are 3 or maybe 4, I can't remember, and it really just feels like they're really a poor substitute for the great Mike Kahn. So anyway, it's
is this CGI'd to death?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on, and it's not to the point where...
You know what I never understood? The criticism of Crystal Skull. My complaint about Crystal Skull is that probably all my complaints about Crystal Skull emanate from George Lucas. The kiddie-ish stuff in Crystal Skull.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
The staging, everything else is pretty flawless.
Spot on. Yep.
But I never understood why people had a thing about the alien subplot. As if that's less realistic than the spirits coming out of the Ark and the guy's face melting off. Like, or Mola Ram tearing the guy's heart out, and the guy's still living. And it's like the aliens are what you have a problem with? Because that's the step too far?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you have to have a certain suspension of disbelief with these films anyway. I mean, that's just par for the course. But nevertheless, I thought it was okay, but I certainly can't give it a glowing recommendation. I think people who are diehard fans of the Indiana Jones films and certainly the people who are in our age group, they're really going to have some quibbles with it, I believe. So mixed bag for Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny. That's really the only new summer, quote-unquote, release that I've seen because, frankly, it's the only thing I've been interested in seeing the last 2 months. I don't know if it's something going on with me or if the just quality of the films are less. I heard, Tarantino came out again. There was a press item about him saying, movies died in 2019. And I don't know. I think he may be onto something. I hate to say it. The theatrical films. Because even films from directors whose work I typically look forward to, even they've been off the mark since the COVID situation that we all went through. And I just feel like I have a word for it. It's called second tier post-COVID film slate is what we're seeing, is what I call it. And basically everything fits that mold that I'm seeing pretty much. I've learned to really temper my enthusiasm for anything. And we had a get together for our North Carolina film critics out here, and we had a social, and everybody was asking each other, what are you most excited about this summer? And I said, nothing, absolutely nothing, except the Indiana Jones, and which, as I just said, that was a disappointment. And then Oppenheimer's the only one left. So, and I'm, who knows about that, because Chris Nolan, he's, for me, hit and miss. So I don't know. Maybe I'm the lone soldier who feels this way, but it's just not getting any better. In the indie film scene, I was just reading an article about that. They said in the first 2 quarters, I think, there was only one indie film, and that was Book Club 2. And that's, when you use the term indie with Book Club 2, that's kind of a stretch. But that was the only thing resembling an indie film that even made the top 50, I think, in terms of moneymakers. So that's kind of where we're at in the business. Mold these days. And again, I don't mind sequels. I don't mind franchises. That's not the problem. It's just these things are so derivative of things that we've seen before. If you're going to take these franchises and properties, just $350 million for Fast X, for a movie about basically drag racing.
which sounds like a constipation medicine, doesn't it? Fast X. Take Fast X.
It does.
It'll clear you out.
Yeah. But you feel free to put the meme of the old man shouting at the clouds on this one if you want to. It's fine. But I just, and I don't want to.
I don't know if Indiana Jones, if movies are different now than they used to be, and maybe Indiana Jones is befitting of its archaeology subplot. Maybe it should be looked upon as kind of a relic. So maybe their metric should be, if Dial of Destiny were released in 1981, would it catch on the same as the original Raiders? Maybe that should be their barometer of quality.
I'm not so sure. I don't think.
And if they don't think it would, then they shouldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think the sense of wonderment is there that you had in the original Raiders of the Lost Ark. I just don't feel like it's there. Like I said, and there's five.
Well, and we're older, dude. I mean, wonderment for me isn't what it was when I was 8, as an adult. Not.
I totally agree.
I mean, Avatar would have been fucking mind-bending when I was a kid, but now it's like, oh, well, that's cool. It's an advanced technology. That looks cool. It looks convincing. And, that's it.
Yeah.
Because I'm 49.
It's just, I don't know. It just feels like filmmaking by committee. That's my biggest complaint. There's so many elements in the film that feel like they were placed there just to please the shareholders of the Disney, who own stake in Disney. It doesn't feel like filmmaking done from the heart. Whereas,
I mean, it's franchise, it's IP, whatever the hell that means, intellectual property. I know what it stands for, but it's like this phrase that they throw around all the time, IP, and it is as impersonal as it sounds. Yes, it's true. Yeah. So, and you see these, there's like 4 or 5 credited screenwriters, and you think back to the original, which was penned by Lawrence Kasdan. I mean, obviously it was a George Lucas, it was his idea, but he farmed it out to Lawrence Kasdan, who did a beautiful job. One guy's vision, basically, or if you and it was
George
done
Lucas,
cheaply.
But, yes, exactly. You didn't have a committee, and it's basically he turned in a script, and they may have made a few adjustments here and there, and it's pretty much one guy's idea of what this should be, and so I think that's what we're missing. When you get too many voices in a room, I don't know. It can be just more noise than anything, I guess. So anyway, I'll just leave it at that and not try to belabor the point. But
so what is it? A C+?
I'd give it a B-, just to be generous. There's enough in the first 2 acts to keep you somewhat invigorated and interested. It's just that third act that just collapses during that for me. But there's no reason this movie needs to be 2 hours and 25 minutes. It's like everything else. It's a butt-nomathon, and there's no reason for it. And so that's another problem. But anyway, the John Williams score is great, though. I'll say that. So
yeah,
as always.
Thank God for people that are still doing old school scores.
Exactly. Yep. That's one of, and again, that's something that really bothers me is the fact that nobody seems to bring that up in their reviews. I seem to be the only person who picks up on that. Even my fellow critics never mention, the lack of.
Well, I pick up on it.
Themes or you do. Yeah, you're one of the few people, and it's just never mentioned. And people go on about their business reviewing these films, and they never. I keep waiting for that YouTube video. Maybe it's out there where somebody puts a side-by-side comparison of Superman the movie's music, a montage of the music from Superman the movie versus insert your Marvel film here, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because they're all interchangeable. And I would love to see that comparison contrast.
The 90s were the last great time for film scores.
Absolutely.
Really were. The last period of time where we got melodic themes.
And every now and then you'll get one that slips in, like Phantom Thread from a couple of years back was really good. That's one that I have played it repeatedly, but it's the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah.
As opposed to
and look, and some dissident scores work great. I mean, You mentioned Phantom Thread. There Will Be Blood is a dissonant score.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's not really melodic. Sometimes they work great.
Yeah.
That's the norm now. Like, just like shit you can buy from Digital Juice to put on a corporate video. It's just like unmemorable music accompaniment,
Yeah.
Over the video of some guy telling you about the dangers of sexual harassment in the workplace. That's what film scores are now.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, sadly, it's really, kind of sad.
Yeah.
Where it's gone. And,
speaking of sad, let's get to these May Blu-rays.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.